Hello, sir. Hello.
Yes, sir. Dr. Murali will first of all tell about the rules and regulations of this seminar, then this workshop. Then I will tell some thing which the participants should follow. Please, Murali, please, how it is done, how in what way it is going to do.
Over to you, sir.
Please.
Respected Vasudev Namburi sir and the organizers of PAMPA and other dignitaries and participants. So this is actually an experiment on how to debate. So different methods of debates are already mentioned in several school of philosophies like Nirnaya philosophy has have this name Tarkashastra because of it is a science of debating also. So similarly in our Charaka Samhita also we can read the different methods of debating in Vimanasthana, Roga Bishakjadiya. So but such methods we are just learning for the sake of examination, but we are not making it in practice. So with the support of PAMPA, we are together here to have an experiment with the traditional method of debate. So don't consider this as a Vigriha Sambhasha. It is Vigriha Sambhasha, Vigriha Bhasha Tivrahi Keshamjil Krodhamavahed. So this is not a severe fight between different ideas, but it is a friendly exchange of ideas. Here, what we have planned is first each team should explain their pradijna. What is their stand on diagnosis? So this can be done within 2-3 minutes. Thereafter, each team will explain the hedu, pradijna, hedu, udaharanam. In such a way, we are planned this debate. So after pradijna, each team will explain the hedus behind their stand or substantiate their policy. Then these hedus will be contradicted by the other team, and the first team should answer to that contradictions. In such a way, we have planned this Tadvidya Sambhasha. So I invite all of you. You can also put some questions in the chat. Selected questions can be answered by each team. I invite Dr. Vasudev Nambudiri sir.
Thank you, Dr. Murali. Here, actually, we are conducting a very friendly match. And myself and Dr. Murali are the whistleblowers or referees. Please take it very easy because it is actually meant for the nourishment of the science. Not here, there is no gaining or no losing, no success or no failing. Nothing is there. It is actually meant for nourishing the science. That is the only purpose. Anyway, I really appreciate the effort taken by PAMPA or the organization PAMPA for doing such an effective approach for contributing to the science. Actually, we all know that Satadadhyanam Vada Paradandra Avalokanam Tadvidya Acharya Sevaja Buddhi Metha Karokana. It is considered to be one of the Buddhi and Metha Kara practice. Because Satadadhyanam, always reading and doing some academic exercise like debating, all these things will definitely nourish the science. With these things alone, we can enrich our science. Moreover, our science, our Ayurveda is written in a very coded language. Actually, every sutra, every shloka is in a sutra model. Alpaksharam asandiktam bhukvartham vishado mukham akshophyam anabadhyanja sutram sutra vidu. Likewise, the definition of sutra is there. Hence, each and every sloka has to be decoded for getting better understanding, better knowledge. For decoding, definitely these type of discussions are essential, because we will get ideas from many people, and that definitely that which will nourish our science or enrich our science. Hence, I am very happy to be here as a moderator of this session. Please, two, three things I have to say. One thing is that you have to, the limited time is there now. Even now we are late. Hence, everybody has to stick out to the time allotted by the organizers. The next thing is that please do not do any kind of personal thing, because it is for the science. You can tell anything support which is supporting your argument. In that way, it should be a very friendly match, and I am sure it will be beneficial for the postgraduate students and new coming upcoming Ayurvedic doctors and the practitioners. Anyway, wishing all the success to this grand program. Once again, I am appreciating the effort taken by PAMPA, and I really am very thankful to the organizers. Moreover, here we are having a very good number of expert panel, which are who are able to narrate the science and explain it very well. Anyway, I am very thankful to organizers. Thank you. I think Dr. Murali, we can start.
So first I invite the team, Dr. Kiradamurthy and Dr. Prasad. They can explain their pradijna.
Namaskaram to one and all of you, my respected teachers, dear Murali sir, and all other dignitaries on board. It is really a wonderful moment for us. As other speakers told, this is an experiment, but it is interesting. It is going to be quite vibrant and hot, I hope. And definitely, other than the way in which it is debated, I definitely hope that there will be something for every contestant and every participant of this program to take something back home with these few words, and also expressing my gratitude and happiness to the organizers, especially my friend Shyam. I'm going to enter into this, I think this program is called PAMPA Arena. Yeah, so I'm entering into the arena of this debate, and I have a great support from my partner, respected Kiradamurthy sir, who is going to be the commander-in-chief of our team. Chadurmukha Samarambham Vagbhadacharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryandam Vande Guru Paramparam. My pradijna, yes, I'm trying to stick on to the way in which Murali sir told. My pradijna in this program is that I'll be putting it in 3 sentences. Ayurveda does not need the investigative tools of Western medicine in the manner as they are used in the Western medicine. And if at all they are the part and parcel of current Ayurvedic practice, there are specific reasons for that. And that is something which is reversible. This is my point. In the next, maybe now I might have already finished 1 minute. In the next 14 minutes, I will try to substantiate my points. In the present social scenario, the process of diagnosis of any disease is much costlier than its treatment. This is because the art of clinical examination and the art of clinical diagnosis has become extinct almost completely. even the first line diagnosis these days is made depending upon investigations. And this has made the healthcare exercise quite expensive and out of the reach of common man in this country. In such a situation, one basic question that I have to ask to the Ayurvedic fraternity is, should we go after the same trend? The values and reports that these investigations are giving us, they are basically dependent upon their interpretations. They are not absolute values. We should not forget it. They are interpretations. And these interpretations are basically designed to meet the needs of a particular system. They seem to see things in bits and pieces, basically. I agree that it has many advantages. But those advantages are pro-Western medicine, pro to their methodology. Ayurveda is an entirely different system. The philosophy of Ayurveda is entirely different from the philosophy of Western medicine, if they have such a thing. So the tools of evaluation cannot be shared, and to the core, it is not going to be beneficial for Ayurveda. Whenever you start dancing to others' tunes, you are supposed to stop the dance when they stop singing. That we should not forget. When you play a game where the rules of the game are prompted by your opponent, the other party, you will be playing always to become in the second position, never to be the first, because the other party will never let you win. The moment you reach the winning point, they will obviously change the rules of the games itself. That is why Ayurveda is lagging behind the Western system of medicine in modern India. You should not forget it. If you have to do things independently, you have to find and revive your own methodological backup. Then Ayurveda, coming to its methodology, it is original, it is fundamental. It has a methodology to assess a Sharira and an Adura, which is original, I would repeat. When we take Tridoshas as the basic functional units of the Sharira, or the Dosha Dhadu Mala as the Ubadana Karana of Sharira, the way in which health and disease are exemplified should be in tune with that. You cannot apply one modality of assessment or intervention in an entirely different system with the same precision for which it is actually intended to. For example, when you assess Agni of an individual, you should have that training and understanding about what you are looking for, because Agni is an original concept. Agni is Agni, nothing else. There is no meaning in comparing Agni with something else. And while you try to translate Agni to the alphabet and grammar of a different system, in simple words, you are fooling yourself. Agni is supposed to be one most important criteria to think upon the dosha and also on the aushadha. So you should have the right understanding of Agni, and when this is not happening, we tend to make comparisons of Agni with maybe thyroid function, hormones, lipid function, liver function, etc., which need not be the reality. One important point is, in Ayurveda, the major prameya is Ayus. Prameya is Ayus, one major prameya. Of course, due to in different contexts, the prameya may change. And when Ayus is the prameya, it is the samyoga of Sharira, Sattva, Indriya and Atma. This concept has no parallels in other systems. So when a Vaidya has to have a correct and complete understanding of his prameya, he has to apply his pramanas according to the working context. When he leaves in some other pramanas or methodology for his labor obviously the assessment should be different. If I understood it right, the so-called modern investigations are initiated and concluded at a level of assessment which is different from those required in Ayurveda. This is because the prameya there is different. So there is very little scope for integrating these methods into Ayurveda because there is a tangible difference in prameyas. Again, coming to one of our classics, Charaka categorically declares that Shariram hyapi sattvam anuvidhiyate. Sattvam cha shariram. Charakam cha shariram, 4th chapter. This concept is very much original to Ayurveda and need not necessarily be a consideration in other systems. While looking at an Adura, a Vaidya is looking at Samanaska, Sendriya, Satma Sharira. Don't forget that. And not at a biological mass of cells and tissues. If you neglect this completeness in approach and resort on seeing the whole cut into bits and pieces, you may be coming up with a lot of data. I do agree, I do appreciate, but that is not going to be of some use as far as Ayurvedic understanding of the situation is concerned. And you will miss the forest for the trees. Let me repeat, you will miss the forest for the trees. Again, while explaining the Samanya Samprapti, Charaka explains a very universal, very vibrant statement. Vikara Vikhada Bhava Bhava Pradivishesha. It is about the Anubandha of 3 factors called Nidana, Dosha and Bhushya. This is very original in Ayurvedic concepts. And for every Vyadhi, a Vaidya is looking to explore these factors clearly and come up with the Samprapti accordingly. And that Samprapti obviously should reach up to the level of doshas, When you are using a tool which is not designed for this exercise, you cannot expect to reach the required level. If you want to reach New Delhi, you have to plan your travel accordingly. Instead, if you plan your travel towards a different direction and still expect to reach New Delhi, you are seriously mistaken. Obviously, you would reach somewhere, no doubt, but don't mistake it as New Delhi. That is what I have to say. When you assess an individual for his illness in Ayurvedic method, you have to see things in Ayurvedic light. You have to travel in that bus, which will take you to the proposed destination. Instead, if you travel in some other bus and reach a different destination and claim that you reach safely your destination, I have no say on it. In the case of Aupasargika Vyadhis or Abhishanga type of Aganduja Vyadhis, the approach of Ayurveda is pro-host, whereas the other system basically is pro-guest. So you cannot depend upon the approach of looking at the microorganisms all around and start killing them. Ayurvedic understanding of infectious diseases is more integrated and comprehensive. When you look for the markers and other similar values while treating them, you tend to travel in a different bus. COVID-19 is the best example now around in this regard. Above and all, over the fact that Ayurvedic diagnostic tools are highly coherent, highly consequent, logical, rational, reasonable, sensible, sound, well-founded, and well-grounded. They are very much gentle, generous, and value-based. They are a part of a civilization which considered medical care as parodharmaha. paro dharmaha. Charaka makes a very bold and categorical observation. Tada bhudeshwa anukrosham puraskritya maharshayah sameda punyakarmana parshvam himavada shubhe. So that anukrosham puraskritya is such a strong, such a resonating message which no other systems claim to be. The Ayurvedic learning methods actually that demands some sort of a shraddha, a dedication, commitment, sacrifice, and suffering to get mastery over the Shastra. Of course, all systems do need this sort of a shraddha. But you have to have shraddha in your school. With shraddha in the neighbor's house, you cannot get command on your house. You should master the art of taking control over your home, not the neighbor's home. That is very important. And Ayurvedic learning does not yield that simply as if you use a plug and play gadget or a do-it-yourself kit. It needs Guru Shishrusha, I would say. Vaidya should be Tirthatta Shastrartha. It is a part of the evolution of human intelligence and wisdom and not a matter of technological supremacy. Definitely, let me say that I am not at all against technology. I bow to the inventions that is happening, including the Zoom platform what we are sitting right now on. There are many techniques even in medicine which can assist human beings to circumvent the limitations of our sense organs. Imaging, endoscopic methods are examples. But even such tools are not indispensable, I should say. I do acknowledge, appreciate the efforts put up by the Western scientists and the advantages that they brought in human life world around. My point of discontent is only one. It is about the negligence that the Ayurvedic Academy and practitioners show and practice in the use of Ayurvedic diagnostic tools, and the unwarranted, unjustifiable favoritism that they shower upon the methods of Western medicine, which is nothing short of suicide. Ayurvedic methods have become scary to an Ayurvedic practitioner because they lack familiarity with that technique in their formative years. That is the problem. Anything which is unfamiliar to us will make us scary. But I should say that if you are free of distractions, the distractions for Indriyas and Manas, I do hope that we can master those techniques. If you have mastery on your senses, you can succeed in coming out of the clutches of the technological slavery. We have committed a serious mistake. We conceded unconditionally to the very idea that India has no scientific inclination in its history. And we put Ayurveda in that dish of recipes which are regarded as ritual and religion, and took it as just the blowing of our own trumpet. We never took it seriously. We lacked the rigor and determination to work in depth into the proper understanding of our own principles. We never understood our own strength. There is time still left to us. We can work with shraddha, commitment, determination. We need great mentors, great acharyas. I think I have 3-4 minutes left. So I would like to tell you one story. One farmer in a village accidentally got an egg of an eagle from the forest. And this farmer took this eagle's egg and kept it in his hatchery, in his farm, with one hen who was brooding. And time passed by, maybe in 21 days, 22 days time, all the eggs hatched. All the eggs were of hen except one, that was the eagle. But the eagle came out of the egg, started walking with the hen, started scratching the mud and the earth around in the backyards of that farmer, started picking up these worms, insects, and eating and making the sounds of the chicken, started moving around. And one day, this farmer was feeling quite pity about this eagle, and he just picked up the eagle and just threw onto the high that up, but that poor eagle fall down. Then this farmer took the eaglet to the top of a tree, and again he threw. The same thing repeated. The eaglet fall down, tuck again. Another intelligent person was seeing this, all exercises. He came forward and he took the eaglet and he bent the neck of the eaglet and showed the eaglet the sky. The moment the eaglet saw the eye, a fresh flow of energy came down to the wings of the eaglet, and on the spur of a moment, the eaglet just flew onto the skies. So that is the intelligent mentorship. That is what we lack actually. We need somebody as our acharyas, our teachers, our masters, our mentors, who can show the real sky to which we belong. Not the backyard where you are supposed to, where you are destined to end up eating these insects and worms. So with these words, I conclude my explanation of Praditya and its explanation and the other details. So I'm looking forward to hear more from my teammate, respected Kiradamurthy sir. Thank you.
Respected dignitaries of PAMPA, judges and dear scholars. Dr. Prasad has presented the points of our debate in an excellent way. Certainly, I think you are convinced with our stand that Western diagnostics tools are not at all necessary for diagnosis of Ayurvedic diseases. I shall go to the specific areas of these problems we are having in the diagnosis in the way of modern diagnostic techniques. And we shall see it one by one. This our Praditya is declaration. Praditya is called as declaration, and my declaration is Ayurveda does not need diagnostic techniques based on Western medicine for our diagnosis. That's my Praditya. Everything should be valued by 5 methods, that is Praditya, that is declaration, Hetu, that is the reasoning, and third one, Udaharana, that is showing the examples, and fourth one, application, that is Upanayana, and next one is conclusion, that is called Upanaya Nigamana. So these are the techniques followed in an Ayurvedic debate. So I shall tell my opinion in this fashion only. So we have already stated that the declaration is Ayurveda does not need diagnostic techniques based on Western medicine for our diagnosis. So we shall see what is the hetu behind it. See, Ayurveda any Shastra, it has got its own characters. And here Ayurveda is Swadhara Siddha, Swapramana Siddha. Ayurveda, every science should have its own principles and its own technologies to identify the diseases and treat the diseases. It doesn't need other sciences to have the knowledge about Ayurveda. So Ayurveda is a Shastra, and the first thing of Shastra, the character of Shastra should be Swa-adhara. It should depend on its own principles and its own ideas. So we have our own pramanas. Our pramanas are 4 types, that is Aptobadesha, Pratyaksha, Anumana, and Upamana or Yukti. These are the techniques by which our diagnosis is done, and it is Swadhara Siddha. So not only that, Ashtanga Hridayagara tells us that idam agama siddhatvat pratyaksha bhaladarshanat mantravat samprayoktavyam na mimamsyam kathanchana. Idam agama siddhatvat. For thousands of years, the Siddhanta means it has been undergoing the research activities and finding out it is correct. So here also, for thousands of years, Ayurveda was diagnosing the
Hello, sir. Kiradamurthy, sir. Hello. Ladies and gentlemen, kindly be patient.
What shall we do, Shyam? Shall we move to the other team?
Sir,
Or wait for 1 minute?
We'll wait for 1 minute. If not, we'll move to the next team, sir. I think, sir, we can move to the next team and we can come back to Kiradamurthy, sir, later on, sir. I think.
Then I invite the team led by Dr. Murali Krishna P. and Dr. Rahul to explain their pratikya and substantiate their view. Please, sir.
Yeah. Shyam? Shyam,
Yes,
can
sir.
I start?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir, definitely, sir. Okay.
Yeah. Hello, good afternoon to everybody. This is Dr. Murali Krishna from Tirupati. Very nice to have this type of session. Of course, 7 days before, there was a surprise call from Shyam Mohan to participate in this debate, and readily accepted because their strenuous activity for the last 200 days. Really a great event, mega event, which is a blessing in disguise in the days of COVID-19. Properly used probably by this organization alone in the world. That's very nice. And I'm very happy to say certain things before doing Pratigna. As already Dr. Prasad has rightly said certain things. But very important thing which I want to project here is, as you know well, the Vedic period, there were tenets of Ayurveda, but they were little mystic and probably not able to be practiced nowadays. But once it comes to the Samhita period, there was a rational approach, logical approach, and physiological basis was established. Tridoshas, Saptadhatus, and Trimalas, excellent diagnostics were developed, and Bruhatraya was evolved. So this way, there is a transition from the mystic practices of Ayurveda into rational practices of Ayurveda at the time of Bruhatraya. Later, if you go to the medieval period, there were even further incorporations of diagnostics. You can see here, there was a special compendium Madhav only for the diagnostics. There was a need during those days. Vishajam Alpamedhasam, it was said. That means during that period, there were people who have less intelligent. They have to follow this type of activity. Then there were an incorporation of the Nadi Pariksha and Thailabindu Pariksha, that is Mutra Pariksha. So these were all probably, the historians also say, brought from the other contemporary medical sciences of those times. This was to be accepted by even the current, if you see the historians and also even going through the history of the other medical systems, there was an established Nadi Pariksha in those days before to the incorporation of the Ayurvedic classics. So in that way, there is a transition. That means new diseases have come up. Firangi Roga was introduced where the Portuguese people came, and new entity, new establishment of diseases like Amavata was established during that period. So there was some evolution is taking place, but not deviating from the fundamentals. That's very important. So fundamentals are intact. Based on those fundamentals, the developments were taken place. And at this contest, I quote the very important quotation of the Homi Baba: the greatness of science is not in the form of knowledge acquired, but in its application. So very important. It's a science. If it has to be validated, means it has to be practiced. So if you see the expression of the Dr. Prasad, I do really agree with you. So, but not all conditions, modern diagnostics are needed. But majority of the conditions, Ayurveda has its own basis, fundamentals, diagnostic procedures, rational approaches, and even the treatment procedures, methodology, everything was very intact and rational, no doubt at all. But in certain conditions, we are lacking. Why we were lacking? Because it was usually the learning process in Ayurveda was a Guru Sishya Parampara. That means from the teacher to the taught, it was descended. So that was the reason why more theoretical aspects were discussed in Samhitas or even the medieval period or the compendiums of Ayurveda. So, but the practical things were demonstrated directly from the teacher to the disciples. Probably they inherited that practical knowledge directly from the teacher to the disciples. That was the nature. But if you see, there was a gap between the 1800 to 1900, that around 200 years, there was a gap of this parampara in majority of the states of India. So only by the help or by the effort of Yadavji Trikamji Acharya, we could get the edited Bruhatraya from different sources of India. Probably we got them or descended them from the Attics. So this was the thing. That means theoretical basis was again re-established. But revival of the theory was again an effort. So in that course, there was a need of practical approach, application of the things. But if you say, if the Prasad's version of not needing any modern diagnostics for Ayurveda practice, if you say like that, So how many physicians, probably, I think it is less than 10% of the Ayurvedic physicians in the entire world, probably practicing only on the basis of Ayurveda, not more than that. What was this, why this happened? Is it because of all of them, about 90% of the people lacking the application of the theory, which was properly dealt in Ayurvedic classics, or they need some help, which is available outside? So this was the thing. Actually, for this, I say that modern diagnostics are needed to understand certain disease conditions. I say certain disease conditions, not all. Majority of the disease conditions can be managed by our own infrastructure, that is fundamentals, our own diagnostics, no doubt at all. To do Ayurvedic diagnosis and the prognosis assessment of the patient. So this is very, very important, which I wholeheartedly say, with the due respect to Ayurveda, due respect to our system. But very important thing is the practical aspect, which I come across. Suppose if you come across a case of acute MI. So when I was a student in post-graduation, so I used to get cases of acute MI admitted by my teachers to ward with different diagnoses like Amlapitta, Parinamasula, or Cherdi, like that. Different diagnoses they were admitted. But once we go for the ECG test and troponin test, it was identified as acute MI. We simply refer them to the ICUs. So why? Because we are all the systems are working for the care of the patients, no doubt at all. And we should not do any mistakes for that. Suppose if we delay it, we process our own treatment without knowing the underlying pathology. So then it will be very problematic for the patient. Sometimes it may be fatal to even patient also. So I come across one more such drishtanta, which I want to focus here is, a patient with a Pandu has gone to a Ayurvedic practitioner, started getting treatment of the Pandu with IS, that is iron. But actually that condition was nothing but a thalassemia major. A thalassemia major is a genetic abnormality where the adult hemoglobin is lacking in them. Only fetal hemoglobin is running even after the development, that is even adulthood. So which is very fastly perishable, and also high saturating nature is there. But the problem here in the thalassemia major is iron deposition. So hemolysis takes place, iron deposition will be fatal for them. Suppose if such condition, if physician did not understand the proper pathology behind and started giving the loha containing the dravyas, then there will be a problem for accumulation of further iron and causing even fatality to the patient. So third example which I want to quote here is, one patient has gone to Ayurvedic physician with Kamala, which was diagnosed as a Sakhasrita Kamala. Then gradually the patient didn't respond to even 4 weeks or 6 weeks of treatment. Then an ultrasound was done. The ultrasound shows that there is a narrowing of the pancreatic duct, that is ampulla of water, that is probably the suspicion is CA pancreas in early days, early stage of CA pancreas, which is obstructing the common bile duct and causing the obstruction to the. So immediately at that stage, the surgical excision of the affected area is only going to save the patient, no doubt at all. But if you go on treating such cases, and if the CA pancreas is further worsened, and then there is ample chances of metastasis, and then gradually the patient may die. So if the condition is neglected. So what I want to say here is, the very important thing is adoption of Ayurvedic principles and in the diagnosis is no doubt it is ultimate. We have to accept that. Even in certain things which Ayurveda says, pramehas, there are 20 pramehas are discussed, madhumeha, and there was even a narration that pipilikas have to be identified. So if that is to identify the sweetness. What is wrong in adopting a biochemical parameter in assessing the sweetness of a urine. Do you think that it is the offense? I don't think so, because there also the Samhitakaras adopted that pipilikas are used for assessment of the sweetness of the urine. So then you are going to identify that it is a Madhumeha. So such adaptability is there, acceptability is there even the Samhitakaras during those days. That means biochemical parameters, if you treat, there is a quotation that is which I want to focus here in the very introduction of the Cecil Textbook of Medicine. There is a quotation. What it says, in the traditional medicines, alternative medicine, they didn't say traditional, alternative medicines. While using the alternative medicines for the management of diabetes mellitus, especially type 2 diabetes mellitus, there are ample chances of increased pathogenesis and worsening of the condition, because there is an apparent feeling of well-being is experienced by the patient, but underlying pathology, increasing of the glucose levels will be further worsening the condition, taking them to even sometimes ketoacidosis. That was the expression. Of course, this is from the modern side. This is a medicine meant for the modern side, no doubt at all. There is a negativity towards the alternative systems that is definitely is there, because they are funded by the modern science. So that is the reason why, which I want to say here is, very important thing which I want to say here is, the adoption of such things, which I come across even in such cases where one patient has gone to Ayurvedic physician for Madhumeha treatment. Treatment was taken for the Madhumeha by physician, has given the treatment, and then he was using the modern medicines, but after taking Ayurvedic medicines, he got very good relief. That means feeling of well-being, very energetic, very active, burning sensation of Laxvar reduced. All those symptomatic relief was there, and very feeling of well-being, and the quality of life was improved, no doubt at all. But suddenly what he did, he suddenly stopped the modern system, modern medication, when he started taking that. At one stage, he landed in a trouble of ketoacidosis. That means by using the medicine, sometimes if we do not go for the diagnostics, then there is ample chances that where we are, sometimes it is blindfold, only based on the symptomatology, we are unable to experience the actual status of the disease. That's very commonly we come across in the practice. But the another important thing which I want to say is, there are certain diagnostic conditions where we are unable to diagnose what actually that entity is. Raktagulme Puranatvam. Still 33 years of my experience, I never comprehend, I am unable to, maybe my ignorance, I have to accept openly that I could not say that what actually the Sukhasadhya Lakshana when it passed 10 months. That means Puranatva is going to cause Sukhasadhya Lakshana. So how it is going to interpret in that? And there is even a description in the conditions of Raktaja Krimi. The Raktaja Krimi, while saying the Raktaja Krimi, it is said, Sushma, this is because of the Sushma, Drushya, they are invisible. But they comprehended. I do not know how they have done, because they are invisible only. And the third point which I want to quote from the Prasadji is, yes, our system is host oriented, no doubt at all. Kshetra Pradhana, Bija Pradhana, we least bother about the microbes. We don't mind for the microbes. But the very important thing is Kshetra Pradhana. Kshetra Pradhana, even in such condition where the microbe, even modern system also has come to that level. We cannot simply deny that they are only microbe oriented. If people are working for the vaccinations, vaccination is a way how the Kshetra is fit with facing such microbial invasions. So that means what I want to ultimately say, nothing wrong in using certain parameters of diagnostic tools in the practice, but legitimately use, not indiscriminately, or not for the purpose of what actually. I also support the expression of Dr. Prasad, that even modern doctors also say that after the advent of diagnostic tools, their clinical acumen was markedly reduced. We have to accept that there is no other way. But there are certain conditions where we need to understand at least even what is the pathogenesis taking place in such minimum areas. Taking the modern diagnostic tools is not a wrong. Suppose if there is a progressive hemiplegia, there are n number of causes, space occupying lesions are there. Based on that, our treatment can be managed. But there is also a management system in the acute stroke conditions. Acute stroke also, nothing wrong in using this is nothing but is a improvising the pratyaksha and anumana pramana of our pramanas. We are directly visualizing the things from outside, but interpreting in our own way. With one example, I will conclude this expression. That is very important is one patient came with the headache. That is a typical symptoms of Ardhavabedaka. So Ardhavabedaka actually, he went to several neurologists before coming to me. So there is a rare pathology taken place where the trigeminal nerve was kinked by the artery. That was only the thing, problem. It is a developmental defect. In the course of time, the artery was encircling the trigeminal nerve and pressurizing that nerve and causing the trigeminal neuralgia as per the modern diagnosis. But once we start giving the line of treatment, see in those lines where the pressure in the dhamanis have to be reduced, so immediately the patient got relief. That means sometimes already, whether you require it or not, before coming to you, they come with a vast amount of clinical diagnostics or even diagnostic established diagnosis. So in that condition, interpreting them, you may not need to refer them for the diagnosis. Already they come with established diagnosis. So in certain diseases where cerebral palsy, I don't find any very similar condition in Ayurveda, but only we can interpret in terms of dosha, dhatu, and mala. So only that interpreted. So certain diseases like motor neuron disorders and the diseases like cerebral palsy, where there is a problem in diagnosis without the modern tools. So that is the reason why we, with due consideration, the due respect to the Ayurveda, majority of the conditions we can depend on our own diagnostic tools, no doubt at all. But in certain conditions, inevitably we need to go for modern diagnostics. Nothing wrong in it. Thank you.
Dr. Rahul, please.
Respected chairs of this session, Professor Vasudevan Namburi sir, Professor Murali sir, my teacher, Professor Kiradamurthy sir, my former principal and mentor, Professor Prasad sir, my teammate, respected Professor Murali Krishna sir, all the august listeners to this function, the team members of PAMPA who host this session, a warm welcome to one and all. First of all, let me congratulate the team PAMPA headed by Dr. Shyam Mohan, who was my favorite surgical friend, who is leading this session with a laser-guided mentality. We used to say about Shyam previously that Shyam is so dedicated, so steadfast, that if he take charge of something, he will see the end of it. So this is an example, one more example to show that Dr. Shyam is as effective as he was. And coming to this topic, that is a Tadvidya Sambhasha for creating an awareness regarding the finer aspects of Roga Nirnaya. I have heard the speeches or the principles laid down by the eminent faculty members, and I am very happy to say that I am very fortunate to sit among the stalwarts and to get a reflected glory. And regarding the praditya, I have made a praditya, written it here just like that of a legal document. Why? Because it's such a debate and you have to be very correct in your statement. So I will read that. my first pradijna, I have got one pradijna and two sub-pradijnas. So the first pradijna is like this. Ayurveda can accommodate the judicious use of technological diagnostic entities as and when needed to identify certain clinical entities. You just listen, certain clinical entities from the background of clinical syndromes, because these technological diagnoses are an extension of the pramanas of Ayurveda itself. And this is the pradijna which I want to lay out. And there are two sub-pradijnas also. The first one is Ayurveda is the highly evolved form of personalized medical science, which you can avail anywhere in the world. Today, a lot of researches are going on regarding how to make the medicine personalized. And we ourselves are also reading such endeavors happening in Western medicine. And we feel that we are the leaders in personalized medicine. So if you go to the website of Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, you can see that we are they are advertising like this. We are specialists. We are specialists in each patient. So they are getting transformed to be leaders in personalized medicine, whereas we are centuries ahead of them. We are the leaders in personalized medicine. And my second sub-pradijna is Ayurveda doctors will be the best diagnosticians available around the globe within a short period. Why? Because if we are getting proper training as indicated by Prasad sir. Why? Because we are very smart people. We know how to diagnose everything from a very subjective viewpoint. And secondly, we know very well how to use the objective diagnostic tools. So we are the best diagnosticians if we are trained properly, available in this 21st century. So these are the two sub-pradijnas which I also want to make. And before entering into the topic, I want to have a disclaimer that when you say about Western diagnostic tools, don't compare the use of those diagnostic tools made by Indian allopaths and the Western counterparts. Why? Because the Indian allopathy is a very crude form of Western medicine practiced anywhere in the world. It's a very crude form. The refined form of allopathy or refined form of Western medicine, if you want to see, you just go to Europe, you just go to Scandinavian nations and just meet the doctors there, and you will see what is the real Western medicine is. And many a time you will forget that they are Western medicine people. You will feel that they are Ayurvedics because they are very, very, I have some experiences regarding that. They are rooted in subjective clinical diagnosis and they are ready to accept the new technological challenges. And coming to my pradijna, the first point is Ayurveda can accommodate the newly evolving technological diagnosis. So if I say Ayurveda can accommodate, then I need to say about the breadth of Ayurvedic diagnosis. For us, the diagnosis is not a single term. We are not for the term diagnosis as we are familiar as seen in allopathy. See, somebody going to an allopathic physician with multiple joint pain, swelling, rise of temperature, etc., undergoing all the biochemical tests and finally getting diagnosed as rheumatoid arthritis. So you got a term diagnosis. This cannot be equated to the Ayurvedic diagnosis. If somebody comes to us and we diagnose somebody as Gridrasi, that Gridrasi is also a term diagnosis, but we are not going to operate that particular patient on the basis of that particular term diagnosis. That's the difference. For us, the diagnosis is something else. So what is that else in that term? What else than term diagnosis we are having? So for that, I will recite one sloga from Siddhanta Nidanam, usually recited by our dear Vasa Namburi sir. Tatat Lakshana Samashtidaya Bodhidavya Abhyandara Vigrdi Parambara Paramarthado Roga Eva. So what is Roga? That is the question. So he says Lakshana Samashtidaya Bodhidavya Abhyandara Vigrdi Parambara. So all those signs and symptoms as well as all other supportive information which is pointing towards the Abhyandara Vigrdi Parambara is defined as diagnosis in Ayurveda. So we are not searching for or rather we are not satisfied with the term diagnosis which we are having, which we are getting satisfied only at the time of exams. So during the exams, we used to question the student, and student will be answering the diagnosis is literacy, what is the differential diagnosis, etc., etc. But it is not so. We are focusing on what Abhyantara Vikruti Parampara has been taking place in the body of that particular patient, which makes the patient to be one with literacy. So that is the breadth of Ayurvedic diagnosis. We will say we are not writing a single term. We will write an entire page. That will be the description of the true description of the doshic coordinates of the patient, and that will be the Ayurvedic diagnosis. The fine example is the Dashavida Pariksha as mentioned by Charaka. And what happened later, as Murali Krishna sir told, as a student of Roga Nidanam, I feel that in our Samhidas, you can see that Charaka, Susruta, Ashtanga, Hridaya, Sangraha, etc., they are pointing to the model-based diagnosis. Now, the world is coming back to model-based diagnosis. The new cutting-edge researches are all going towards not clinical entities, back to this model-based diagnosis. This model-based diagnosis, everything is model. Jwara model is there, Raktapitta model is there, Pandu model is there. All they are big models we are available. But as the days progress, we can see there is a need for more specificity, which they want to be in diagnosis. Why? Why? Because if you start the treatment of a patient, you stand in the ground, you start treating the patient, you stand at the bedside, and you can feel that if you get a patient, as the clinical practice of Ayurveda enhanced. But I feel that we are there in the epidemiological scenario of India for the past 4,000 years. So I am telling the story of model diagnosis, which were framed 4,000 years back, and as the practice has been enhanced throughout this subcontinent, they felt that they need to address the specific clinical entities which are carved out from these models. See, I will say one thing. I will tell the broad diagnosis, model-based diagnosis called ARSHAS. So inside ARSHAS, you will receive two or three or four types of different types of patients. The one set of patient will be presenting with some bleeding piles, hemorrhoids. The other set will be coming with the same bleeding presentation, but maybe coming from a colorectal tumor. So there is the difference. So there happened a need to define the subconstituent clinical entities, and that happened in Madhav Nidanam, Bhav Prakasham, Yoga Ratnagaram, Vaishyaja Ratnavali, and finally we can see such attempts very exuberantly in textbooks like Basavaraji. See, Basavarajiam is the first textbook to define the Parkinson's disease as Kambavada. I will say that the term Parkinson's disease is wrong. Instead, it should be known as the Basavaraj disease, because he is the first person to define it. Unfortunately, he was not there in the Western world. So such clinical entities, a lot of clinical entities I will show you, which can be incorporated into the previous Samhita-based models. For example, Vrika Roga, which is having mentioned in Vaishyaja Ratnavali. Vrika Rogam can be included in the Mutra Khvadam. Amla Bitam, which can be included in the Paitya Grahini. See, then other different types of Vada Vigara like Dhuma Vadam, Madhuma Vadam, Kamba Vadam, many of may be getting included in Ubadadu Pradoshya Vigaram, etc., which are mentioned in the Brihatri. So there are formations of clinical entities, and also there will be rapid additions of these epidemiological or such diseases like Firanga, STDs, which are coming to our place. So as the days progress, the clinical syndromes were substituted, or I will not say substitute, they will be enriched with the definition of clinical entities, which will help the physician to recognize the entity fast and prescribe the medicine and getting back the cure so fast. Likewise, this trend is seen nowadays in Western medical science, as they are carving out different clinical entities very minutely, as we are seeing now. We are having the same coronavirus which are operating in previous years, resulting in different types of diseases like SARS, MERS, etc. And this year, it has been showing a different clinical entity called COVID-19. So my point here is, to identify a clinical entity, you can use this technological diagnosis. But for identification of broad clinical syndromes and to set the patient in their background, you should have a thorough Ayurvedic knowledge. And what I say is spicing up of the thorough Ayurvedic knowledge with technological knowledge. That will be the best possible solution available. Now coming to the second part is the diagnostic tools. See, what about these technological diagnostic tools? There is nothing related with allopathy. See, I am telling that the Western medicine adapts these technological diagnostic tools for their purpose. This year, the Nobel Prize is given to 2 female scientists in chemistry for developing a tool which cuts the gene. The Western medicine is going to adapt that particular tool for treating the genetic diseases. Now they are going to adapt that particular tool. So adoption is going on continuously in Western medicine. The tool is not developed for Western medicine. The tool is not developed. I will tell the story of ultrasound scanning. See, previously the ultrasound scanner has been developed, which is used in the Second World War to find out the submarines. See, thereafter, after the Second World War, the scientists thought that the same thing is happening inside the amniotic bag, wherein a solid substance is lodged inside a cavity of water. So just like a submarine floating inside the ocean, the fetus is floating inside the amniotic bag. And why can't we use the same scanner to study the fetus? So they have adopted the technology of ultrasound scanning to study the fetus. So such adoptions is taking place in Western medicine, and the tools are not for Western medicine. The Western medicine adopts. So third part of my pradijna is we have to accommodate and adopt those Western medicine tools as and when needed. I will not tell the Western medicine tools, those technological tools as and when needed for precise diagnostic information to serve the people. That I want to tell, to serve the people. Because we are living in a third world nation. And in this third world nation, it will be, in Kerala, it is not a problem. I think every 5 kilometers, you will get a super specialist sitting there wanting for patients. But when you go to Bihar, Chhattisgarh, or in remote parts of India, if there is a doubt in diagnosis and some patient is brought to your clinic and you are situated in a city, and if the patient is going back 400 kilometers back to his village, before going, you make sure something very credible regarding some information which you are lacking. Maybe due to your experience, you can use this technological diagnosis. I will tell you one example. Ovarian CA. Ovarian CA many often presents for the first time. Many cases I have seen that they are presenting like the Pura Rupa of Kulma. The Pura Rupa of Kulma states that there is Udgara Bahulyam, Purisha Bandham, Kripti Akshamatvam, Andhra Vigujanam, Adovam, Atmanam, Apakta Shaktim, Asanna Gulmasya Vadandichin. So many of the cases I have seen, they are presenting for the initial time as the Pura Rupa of Kulma. But the Pura Rupa of Kulma is a broad platform wherein you will get one clinical entity as ovarian cancer. The second clinical entity may be a simple abdominal bloating. So to distinguish between how you will be distinguished from an Ayurvedic platform, you will be using the Bela Samprati. I will tell. Bela Samprati is the cornerstone. Bela Samprati Hetwadi Kasnya Avayavet Bela Bela Visheshana. I will say for an experienced clinician who is having 40 to 50 years of regular patient seeing, he will be identifying this particular case as ovarian cancer. The second particular case may be as simple abdominal bloating. But for a beginner who is sitting in the OPD, he will be missing the case sometimes. Why? Because if ovarian cancer is left untreated and if it is aggressive, there is a chance of spreading into peritoneum and the patient is lost. But if you can have critical diagnosis and sending the patient for surgery, the patient can be saved. And you see that ovarian cancer affects mostly the ladies below 50. So it is worthy saving lives. And so there is for understanding the Bela Samprati, you need experience battling regularly with the cases for years. Then only you will have an experience to judge which is an ovarian CA and which other one is not that. So using a technology to specifically identify such a great problem which will save the life of a woman, it is better to adopt the technological problem if the patient is economically okay. Otherwise, you can send the patient to an experienced doctor. And one more important point I want to place here is, we all people are Ayurvedists. As Prasad sir told, it is our duty to study the Ayurvedic experiential diagnosis. I will say the experiential diagnosis, because we are using all our Panchendriya, we are using properly the Anumana Pramanam, Yukti, etc. And you have to regularly get trained under a proper doctor. Yes, then you fight with the patients, you fight with the diseases every day, and you will get experienced. Then you can slowly withdraw your tendency. That will be an automatic process. You will be slowly withdrawing from writing the investigative tools. Why? Because then you will be experienced sufficiently that you can identify a case without writing an investigation. And my point is, I want to put forward the point that rooted in the soil of Ayurveda, get rooted in the soil of Ayurveda, your crown should grow upwards, and you should use every other option available to serve the life of the people. And so for that purpose, as I told previously, the case of troponin T, sometimes the dhatu paga will be happen inside our body. We will not be recognizing the dhatu paga happening. Why? Because we are not so sensitive. I think our tools are very specific, but not so sensitive. So your sensitivity gradually increases with the age of your clinical practice. So in order to enhance your sensitivity, if you are a beginner, there is no harm in writing a troponin T, which will be predicting dhatu paga happening in the heart. No harm in writing SGOT and SGPT, which will help you to identify dhatu paga happening in liver. So that will enhance your sensitivity. So for those all purposes, I reserve the tools, the technology, the diagnostic tools, which are being produced by physics, chemistry, etc., not by Western medicine, to be used properly, judiciously, wherever needed, after proper consultation, after proper thinking, for the proper diagnosis, so that what I told, that we are the most evolved form of personalized medicine, and we will be the best diagnosticians available in the world. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
So we had both the teams explaining their praditya. Now it is time to refute or do the khandana of the hedus of each of the team.
Yeah, we can give 5 minutes to Kiradamurthy sir. He is back.
Okay.
Kiradamurthy sir is here, sir.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
5 minutes we can give, I think.
Yes, yes.
Anything to refute the other team's arguments?
Yeah. I have told the Praditya, and I shall tell about it. The diagnostic techniques of Western medicine contradicts with Ayurvedic way of diagnosis. See, this is, and second one, the contradiction leads to wrong interpretation in diagnosis according to Ayurvedic principles. And third one, I wanted to tell, it ends up with the wrong treatment and jeopardize the whole line of treatment. I shall tell you one example. A case of Pravahika, where a student, he goes and finds out that it is amoebic dysentery, and he writes, according to knowledge of modern knowledge, he is writing Krimigna Vadiga. But according to symptoms in Ayurvedic way, we will find out that it is Pravahika, and we will be diagnosing according to the pathogenesis, and also dosha vichintana will be done, and accordingly the medicine differs. So the effective condition also will be differing in such conditions. And also we have several udaharanas for that. I shall tell you. Ayurveda has its own principle, and it is founded, and we have to look at the health and the disease in that concept that is holistic. The diagnosis in the modern way is based on reduction method, which is just opposite. we see the disease as a result of changes in the dosha. And this concept is totally missing in Western diagnosis. Where we say dosha evahi sarvesham roganam eka karanam. So the second point I want to tell is the Ayurvedic Siddhantas are time tested by thousands of years. And diagnosis was conducted by its own techniques like Dashavitha Pariksha, Trivitha Pariksha, and Panchendriya Pariksha, etc. So, deep understanding of these techniques are the need of the hour, not switching to Western type of diagnostic tools. And third thing I wanted to tell is Ayurvedic learning of principles, diagnosis, and treatment is linked to a common thread. In between, when entirely different diagnostic techniques are introduced, the Vaidya cannot assimilate both. And it becomes Shalya or foreign body, Ayurveda, and also the Vaidya. Then we shall see some of the conditions. In Jwara, Amashya is considered as a site of Jwara Samprapti, and it is different in modern pathogenesis. And we cannot generate a common point in it. This jeopardizes the whole diagnostic and treatment procedures. And for fifth one, I shall tell you, there was formerly a thought of finding and examining the Ayurvedic physiology in the lines of Western knowledge, and it was a futile exercise. Ojas in Ayurveda was correlated as opsonin by a stalwart, but this idea is totally missing now, and we should go for something new for the correlation in vain. That shows that Ayurveda should be diagnosed and known according to its principles and vision, that is called Shastra Sadbhava. When we are out of the way, we will end in darkness. Antam tamapravishadi e avidya mupasade. We have to stand on our principles and diagnose accordingly. And sixth point I wanted to stress is, we see, I shall tell you one example, Udaharana. Natural urges when blocked, that is Vegarodhajanya, leads to headache. And this is not considered as a causative factor as per Western medical science. If student studies the modern diagnostic way, they have to follow these principles, and it will end up in the loss of Ayurvedic line of causation and all like this Vegarodha. So an example, there are many things associated with it. Then seventh point I want to stress is in Vata-Rakta disease. Vata-Rakta disease has different conditions of dosha predominance like Vata, Pitta, Kapha, and Avarana, etc. These are not entities which are directly observable by any instruments. Rather, they are understood from the signs and symptoms explained in the tests. Rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis, gout, everything, according to blood reports, does not deliver any knowledge of pathogenesis and treatment according to Ayurveda. The interpretations differ each day, and we have to change our concept daily. So we have to switch on to our areas of knowledge to deliver our successful management of disease. Nobody can help us if we don't help ourselves. So we have to stand in our principles and find out our method of diagnosis and treat accordingly. And eighth point I wanted to stress is, Acharya Charaka tells all 5 vadas get vitiated in ashes. And when diagnosed it as hemorrhoids, it does not make sense of vitiation taking place in the whole body, and we lose the holistic line of treatment. That's the 8th point I wanted to stress. And 9th point, just points I will tell. What we think is the science according to B.M. Hegde. Observation is the main diagnostic tool. Our acharyas gave preference to it. Signs and symptoms are the area to find out disease process rather than lab investigations. The normal values of routine blood examinations are changing frequently, and personal Prakriti manifestations are not taken into account, leading to making normal persons to disease the condition due to unnecessary medication. So we have to stick on to our diagnostic tools only and keep away from pharmaceutical gambling techniques. That is what in other modern science they are having. We are not able, and 10th point, we are not able to identify Dhatu Dushti by lab investigations of Western techniques. What we say about Dushti is in Guna and Karma and cannot be identified by modern techniques. And 11th point I wanted to stress is the imaging techniques help to overcome Pratyaksha Badhaka Bhavas, but it does not cover all areas of vitiation. So it has its own areas. Then 12th point I wanted to stress, if we trust fully the diagnostic techniques of Western medicine, the scope goes for the modern medicinal system because we are aligned to their interpretation. 13th point I wanted to stress is the medicinal system of Ayurveda. The medicinal system of Ayurveda, man as a unit of body, sense organs, mind, and soul. And the diagnostic techniques are utilized for, or not only in body levels, it is in the vision of all this holistic approach. So 14th point I want to stress is the basic factors of health and disease care, doshas, and they are the possible identities. The diagnostic tools of Western medicine does not cover this dosha concept, and it is known by guna and karma in the cognitive level. So the modern techniques measurements does not cover it. Knowledge process of Ayurveda is from within outside, within to outside, within to outside, while modern diagnostic methods are based on materialistic plane only. So I just wanted to stress that just by diagnosing in the modern way, we cannot understand the disease process, and it needs an Ayurvedic knowledge concept based on holistic approach to know the role of Basti advocated in Vata Rogas. So the knowledge of Tridoshas, Dhadus, Samprapti are needed for diagnosis rather than Western diagnostic tools. I think I have explained sufficient examples for substantiating my declaration. So I conclude that Western diagnostic, that is the inference or the Nigamana, I conclude that Western diagnostic tools are not needed for Ayurvedic diagnosis of diseases, and it certainly jeopardizes the diagnosis and treatment for Ayurvedic Vaidyas. Thank you.
Now I invite the other team to put forward their counter arguments. Dr. Murali Krishna and Dr. Lahu.
I have listened to Kirathamurthy sir and also Prasad earlier. It was narrated. Absolutely, we don't need any investigative procedures of modern system for our own management, that is Ayurvedic management. But if you see like that, nowadays there will be a clumsy picture of expression of the Lakshanas seen, because the patient will be in the Roga Sankara, that means maybe having different disease conditions, like in their modern system version, it is a diabetes and hypertension, dyslipidemia and other things. But they got even Patshagata also. For Patshagata purpose, if they come to Ayurvedic physician, how we are going to assess the condition? Because there is a already masked Lakshanas by modern medications. But we cannot withdraw them and make them naked for only Ayurvedic treatment by expression of the all Lakshanas as it is, without being masked by the modern medication. So in that condition, nowadays even we are exposed to n number of pesticide chemical menus exposed regularly through our own, because even the modern science also say we are swimming in an ocean of chemicals. We are unable to interpret the effects of these chemicals on our food, and through food, how they are going to increase the gunas and in turn gunas to the doshas. But sometimes our food, which is being almost contaminated by the pesticides, insecticides, chemical manures, we are unable to interpret their effects of the gunas properly to even advocate the patya and also to assess the etiology, etiopathological factors for the assessment of the disease. So all these contests, all these conditions, if you see, but there is a clumsy picture that it is not a clear picture the patient is exhibiting when they come with the already medicated by the modern doctor. So in such conditions, there may be already the drugs which were given or the investigation procedures which were already taken by them is going to give to some extent the stand that what actually happened earlier and what is the current position, and based on the present symptomatology, lakshanas, we can come to or draw the conclusion and focally we can give. So nowadays, even if you see around 30 to 40% of the patients having the comorbidities along with the disease. That means when they come to us, we cannot stop their medication when they suddenly come to it. It's a impractical thing. Practically, if you feel that is, because this is my experience, I do not know, but others what they say. The very important thing which I want to say is we should not adopt the diagnostic procedures what they are being adopted by the modern system. But very minimum things where we require legitimately, that means judiciously, we have to go for only certain investigative procedures in the conditions where we are unable to assess based on the lakshana samprapti or even the hetus and dosha sammurchana and samprapti assessment. So in that condition, nothing wrong in adopting the modern tools for temporary purpose and only to establish our own diagnosis and find out our own treatment modality. So let me say a few things here in this contest. Very important thing which I want to focus is when I was one of the monitoring committee members for Amalaki Rasayan, there was a study conducted which was interested by Abdul Kalam that some scientific validation is needed for Ayurveda to focus in the international arena. Then there were a group of physicians called for, several discussions were taken place. The modern base scientists, they asked, what is the best which can be established from your side? So then they said that the Rasayana is the ultimate thing. So which Rasayana you adopt? But there are several references for the Amalaki. So then what they said, you select your own Rasayana and you say that what is the purpose of that? What are the attributes of Rasayana? We developed tools for that, and through that developed tools, we established the efficacy of that. So Amalakam Vayasthapananam is our own principle. But for that, the science and technology, that is science and technology, not the Department of Ayush, remember. So spend around 10 to 15 crores, publish around 12 papers that Amalaki Vayasthapananam is established by DNA repair. Fast DNA repair is seen. DNA repair is one of the important factors for the increasing the span of life. And in the Drosophila melanogaster model, it was supposed to be the lifespan of 36 days, which was extended to the 42 days. And its fertility index was increased as because Rasayana, Vajikarna are both having Swastasya Swasthya Rakshanam is that is the Rasayana and Vajikarna both are having the similar qualities. So with this antioxidant property, immunological modulation, and lifespan increase in the Drosophila model, all these around 12 papers were published out of that. So another which I want to use is the validation is now the problem, because House of Lords, when there was a question of adopting, because Indians are also there in London, they want to go for Ayurvedic treatment, but Ayurvedic treatment was not accepted in certain countries like US, certain provinces of US, and even certain areas of Western countries. So what was the reason for that? Because there is no valid. So because if you see the China, there is a traditional system of medicine. It has projected the traditional system, stick on to their own principles, but projecting is in the validated form, and it has almost 40 times more than our exports. And it has even grabbed the total market of the world. So maybe we are conservatives, we know that we don't want to grab such type of things, but validation is a very need of the hour nowadays. So if you say that our own principles we can do, no doubt at all. But once it comes to because it is now globalized, and our people are staying other countries also, they want to undergo the treatment. Such time, even the practicing Ayurveda in global scenario is a difficult task unless we validate them. So recently, I come across one study conducted at IIT Chennai, as I was called as an expert for that. And actually, what they studied is, it's a very important thing, because we did not know human variations are there, even applying the things or even practicing the things, even like Panchakarma or other procedures. The study, which was conducted by Mechatronics Department of IIT Chennai, what they did is they identified the traditional method of dhara and the tap method of dhara. So both things are identified. So they studied on the flowmetries and also viscosity variations, and they want to develop a robot with the accurate and precision with very similar to the traditional method. So that they identified it, they could come out with a publication of paper that they can identify based on the Kshirbala Thailam, Nirgundi Thailam, or Mahamash Thailam. Based on the viscosity, you can fix and what type of flow, continuous flow has to be made. So in that, actually what they identified, the traditional method using the coconut shell is more stable in the flowmetry rather than tap method. But if you see now, practicality is there, technology is there, but there is a science for us which is going to help us and which is going to validate us without deviation from our own fundamentals. But we have to accept certain things for that. And what I told you, the another condition where C.P. Shuklaji, very famous physician from the Jamnagar, he was a professor, he was also called as a moving charaka. And then he says that in his say that there is no terminology equations. For example, vata rakta, we cannot just call it as a rheumatoid arthritis or a particular polyarthritis condition. But he says that based on the symptomatology, lakshanas, sometimes we find the same disease entity of the modern system in our own disease entity separately. He quotes two important examples which I want to share with you. A condition called Vataja Grahani. So very close, he identified it as Vataja Grahani, but the modern cardiologist identified it as left ventricular failure. It doesn't mean that it is a Hridroga. By seeing that left ventricular failure of the modern doctor, we cannot brand it as Hridroga. But similarly, a Vata Rakta condition is very close to the Berger's disease. A patient come with the Vata Rakta lakshanas, Uttana Vata Rakta conditions, and then he says that it is very close to the Berger's disease, thromboangiitis obliterans. So that means we never say that we should not be driven away by the modern diagnostics or nomenclature of the modern diseases. But very important thing which I want to say is using the parameters when and where it is needed is going to I'm going to conclude. Empower us for for better execution of our profession to the alleviation of suffering of the people. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
I again invite the first team to explain if anything more.
Yeah. Just by 2 sentences, I shall tell my opinion about it. See, one foreign Ayurvedic person came to our college and asked about the action of a dravya. So the head of the department, one of the colleges head of the department is telling the Devya has got active principle, etc. And he was explaining this acts like that. Then the foreign lady told him, don't tell in the modern terminologies that I know. I am a botanist. You tell in your words, in the Ayurvedic terminology, Ayurvedic way of action, you tell it. That is what we want to know. And we had several experiences while teaching Westerners the Ayurveda. They ask for Ayurvedic terminology, Ayurvedic diagnosis, Ayurvedic way of pathogenesis, everything. They are satisfied with that. We have to increase our knowledge how in Ayurvedic terminology, Ayurvedic way of diagnosis, how we can improve to have correct knowledge of the disease rather than going into others areas and finding out something better options there. We have to switch on to our principles, our diagnosis, our treatment, and increase our knowledge to have knowledge not from the net, from the forehead. That we have to. That is why Acharya has told that darshanam vipulamati tabhya matas suyuktabhyam chikilsannaparam. Darshanam vipulamati. Vipulamati is the darshana by which we can identify the disease prognosis, disease diagnosis, and also treatment. We have to increase it. That's all. It is very late. We have to finish the things. I am not explaining too much. Thank you. Thank you very much for Shyam and also all the authorities of PAMPA for giving us a chance for a debate that is founded on the Ayurvedic principles. It's an experience, first experience for me here to sit in this debate. And I thank you for the judges, Sir Murali Sir, and also Vasudevan Sir, and also my friend Dr. Prasad, and also all the scholars who have participated in this. Just by one word, Nandi. Thank you.
Dr. Kiradamurthy, we are not judges. Nobody is going to judge this. The both team has putting further points, and there is no end for this Tadvidya Sambhasha. And in the matter of questions from the participants, I couldn't find any ideal question, but really a parallel discussion was going on in the chats, and that was also very much interesting. So now I'm inviting Dr. Vasudevan Namburi sir to conclude this Tadvidya Sambhasha. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Murali. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Murali. All the four people explained their own view in a good way. I am very thankful to the resource persons because they were able to keep the time also. But you know, this is what Murali told is correct. This is not the end of the end of the thing, because you know this is an academic feast. This was an academic feast, which will be continued in further days also, definitely. In Ashtanga Sagraha, it is already told that Marut Amagraho Unmada Madan Susadrshagriti Kojaniyal Chigilse Dura Pinna Kriyakrama. There are certain diseases which are having Susadrshagriti, but it is very difficult to treat them because they are having Dura Pinna Kriyakrama. In those conditions, it is very Acharya itself tells that, you know, it is very difficult to make a diagnosis. In Arsas also, I think in Vada Gulma, Ashanga, Grahani Dosha, Panda Gulmo Dereshua, Gulmo Dereshuja, Acharya, in many places, you know, it is very difficult to make a diagnosis with Ayurvedic principles alone, Acharya says. Moreover, when we tell about Dushyam, Desham, Belangaram, Charaka says that Sushmanihi, all these are very Sushma, and Vimala, Vipula, Buddhe, Rabi, Buddhi, Mahuli Guru. It is very difficult to make a diagnosis because that much of Sushmata is necessary, which nowadays the doctors are lacking. We know that some lower back patients are coming. They may be coming with a MRI report. Some disc problem is there. Actually, for an Ayurvedic doctor, it is useful only for making understanding that this is a space occupying lesion is not there. Then it can be treated very well with Ayurveda. Hence, for avoiding or for ruling out such serious pathologies, some level of modern diagnosis is necessary, but everywhere it is not at all needed also. In Siddhartha Nidana, Acharya says that Adrishta Deshakaladi Parinamad Anekatha Purana Praviliyante Navina Pradurasate Viphityande Stitastata Pranam Anavitha Gata. Like that, Acharya says that, which means that, both these arguments are correct up to a certain level. We either may I think in Rasa Vaisheshika, Acharya says that, idameva pradhanam idam neti chikirsaya. Chikirsaya pradhanam avastha vidhanam. In that way, actually, we have to make a consensus in this aspect. Aniyayal pratipadam sarvadharmeshu mathyamam. We need not be very extremist, because we cannot avoid all the modern investigations and we cannot adopt all the investigations also, because we have to make use of that Ayurvedic buddhi for making diagnosis. Now we know that in my presentation on Vada Shodhana, I used to say that almost 17 to 18 clinical conditions are there which can be managed with Vada Shodhana line of management. For example, fibromyalgia is there, SLE is there, osteoarthritis is there, rheumatoid arthritis is there, cervical spondylosis, lumbar spondylosis. Many such clinical conditions can be managed with Vada Raktam line of management. Hence, Ayurveda is a great science, no doubt that. But, we have to adopt some level of modern diagnostic techniques. Sometimes we may need, but we can't stick to that alone, because then our identity will be lost, and definitely we will be what Prasad told is correct. We will be nothing in future. Hence, for maintaining our integrity in the field, definitely we have to develop some tools for making the diagnosis more accurate. I think these type of discussions will enrich our science, and by these type of discussions, definitely some more diagnostic Ayurvedic tools can be made, incorporating certain simple modern medicine technique, not for going sophisticated techniques, simple Ayurvedic techniques. If you are adopting, we can, what Dr. Rahul told is that we are the best diagnostic people in the world. Definitely, we can be the best diagnostic people in the world. In that way, definitely, we are trying to enrich our science. Anyway, I am very thankful to Dr. Murali Krishna, Dr. Rahul, Dr. Kirathamurthy, Dr. Prasad, Dr. Murali, and all the Sham doctor, all the other doctors, because this was once again I am saying this was a great academic feast. Thank you for participating. Now the time is almost 9:30. I think many people previously, when we started the session, almost 400 people were attending. Now only 217 people are there, which means that people are leaving us. Anyway, we have to conclude this. I don't know how to conclude. Dr. Shyam, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Actually, everyone is hungry. I'm very sure because everyone is sticking to the screens. I am going to unmute all the teachers because the teachers are the speakers are the stars of this show because it takes a certain kind of personality, a certain kind of positive nature to be here without any ego. Only Shastra. The improvement of Shastra in mind. So I'm going to unmute everyone. Sir, please, whatever you have to say, please guide us on, the next steps we'll be taking afterwards, of course. And this was a general topic, just an experiment, as we told earlier, just an experiment to see if it is working or not. And yes, we will be fine tuning it, and we will be coming back with more specific, more better topics, so that it will improve the science that we all love. Also, this is a platform where all the students can take this up. This is just a model that the students can take up in their curriculum, in their colleges, so that what one thing that I have noticed is in Ayurvedic, nobody sits in the front seat. If there is a program going on, I'm very sure nobody will be there in the first seat. Everyone will be sitting in the back seats. That is because we are not, we don't challenge ourselves. We need to challenge ourselves, and we need to answer questions without any emotion, but for the betterment of science. So that is the basic point of this one, so that the students will come up with better arguments and improve the science. So the floor is open to all the speakers, sir. Prasad, sir.
Yeah, yes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this extra opportunity, and also very thank you for the excellent occasion. I would like to say something extra on the points which the other team was trying to say about. And interestingly, at one point of time, of course, it was a very friendly debate. And at one point of time, I felt that I have 4 members in my team. So that was so I wanted to express a special thanks for that. And interestingly, see that my pratijna was very clear. Ayurveda does not need the investigative tools of Western medicine in the manner as they are used in Western medicine. That is what I specifically told, and I stick on to that once again. And I'm very happy to see that all the members of the other team were in perfect tune with what I told. And certain points I would like to highlight. Number one, as far as Dr. Murali Krishna's words are concerned, he was just giving some historical peep into Ayurvedic diagnostic developments. And he was mentioning that the new diagnostic tools, which are the products of the medieval period, like the Nadi Pariksha and everything, could be the adoptions from the other contemporary systems. Could be or could not be. We have no solid evidence, but taking for granted that they are taken from the other systems. One point we have to acknowledge or admit that there were no philosophical conflicts, fundamental conflicts between these systems in the understanding of health and disease. So it was not such a difficult stuff as we are supposed to do right now with Western medicine. And he was giving 3 classical examples of one, maybe Parinamasula, then 2 Pandu, and a case of Kamila. With great humility, with due respect, I would like to look into those cases in a different way. Because I think if the same thing was looked into with some Ayurvedic perspective by a Vaidya who is trained in the Ayurvedic methods basically in the formative period itself, I think the picture will be different. I hope Dr. Murali Krishna will admit to that point. Because see, in the formative period of a Vaidya these days, he is not trained as a Vaidya. Instead, he is supposed to be a C-class MBBS doctor. He's trained to be a C-class MBBS doctor. So his basic formation, his basic grooming is not like a Vaidya. So obviously he tends to look into the other man's plate, other person's dish, than the amount of interest that he is investing in looking after his own dish or his own plate. So I think there can be a change. This is happening in such a way because somewhere in between we lost one important link. I'll finish very soon, very fast. Actually, we can identify three types of Vaidyas. Number one, the Vyavaharika Vaidyas, the biggest pool of our manpower. And there is Shastratnya Vaidyas, who are supposed to be the university teachers and that sort of faculty members. And we have Tattvajna Vaidyas. In the course of time, maybe post-independence especially, we lost the bulk of our Tattvajna Vaidyas. And Vyavaharikas obviously are badly in need of inputs because they have to survive, they have to live, they have to find their bread and butter, they have to find their daily bread, and they have to live with it. So ideally, the pool of Vyavaharika Vaidyas should have been properly nourished with right inputs of the Tattva by the Tattvajna Vaidyas, which should have been percolated down to the Vyavaharika Vaidyas through the Shastrajna Vaidyas. That did not happen. The Tattvajna Vaidyas became a museum specimen, and the Shastrajna Vaidyas were eagerly running after the modern methodology to establish themselves as doctors in the society. So there was a vacant seat of Vaidya in the society, which was occupied by the quacks. So practically, the real qualified Vyavaharika Vaidyas are in Trishangu. They are neither Ayurvedists nor modern medicine doctors. So that is where I think we have to look seriously once we are trying to revive our old golden tradition. And one point is that those towering personalities who actually represent Ayurveda worldwide, those Vaidyas, those seniors, they are using Ayurvedic techniques from top to bottom. They are least bothered about. So Ayurveda is known after a technique, a methodology, which is not a replica of modern diagnostic technology, methodology. Third is about technological applications, technological tools, not modern medicine tools, as rightly mentioned by Dr. Rahul. See, the technology in one side is an extension, as I mentioned earlier, of our senses, which helps us to circumvent the limitations. There is no meaning in saying that I should travel in a bullock cart, or I should not use a feature phone or a mobile phone or a iPhone. We have every access to it. And Rahul was mentioning that we can accommodate. My question is it essential? Is it necessary? Should we accommodate? As long as there is a very clear-cut technology, methodology, and a pattern of analyzing a patient, a case, why don't we work seriously on that to bring back the original techniques of Ayurveda to the forefront so that we can be Vaidyas with a lot of pride and self-esteem. With that, I conclude and retire. Thank you very much for this wonderful evening.
Yes, Dr. Rahul, would you like to add something?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sure. Even though it is
Let us be a bit, little bit thirsty.
I want to add just 2 points because a little bit confusion came in between regarding the use of Western medical techniques. Sorry, I'm again telling that advanced technological investigations in clinical practice. Why should we use that, and what is the aspect or what is the need of using it? As Prasad sir talked it, whether we need to accommodate that tools in clinical practice or not. So I will tell you one thing. That means if we write a biochemical test called ACCP for a Vadasonicum patient, Our purpose is not to use this ACCP to identify it as rheumatoid arthritis. No. Instead, we are writing ACCP. If we write ACCP, the purpose is used to measure the intensive nature of the disease and the extension of involvement. Also, we are predicting the severity, that whether the patient is going to get deformed much earlier. If we write anti-DS DNA for a patient who is having Vadaraktam, our intention should not be to diagnose it as a case of SLE. Instead, we are predicting the chance of this Vadaraktam patient to have a renal involvement very early. The instrument, ophthalmoscope, which is very useful in early detection of diabetic retinopathy, which will reduce, which can predict the chances of occurrence of diabetic retinopathy even 4 to 5 years earlier. So all these tools are meant for service. And I shall add one more point to what Prasad sir told. Here we classified 3 groups of ideas. There is a Tattvajna, Shastrajna and Vyavaharika. What happened is not the unavailability of Tattvajna Vaidya. Instead, the so-called Tattvajna Vaidya dissociated themselves from clinical practice. I fear to say so. Those so-called Tattvajna Vaidyas are or had dissociated themselves from clinical practice. When I was getting taught by Prakash Mangalaseri sir, late Prakash Mangalaseri sir, in the OPD of Ayurveda in Kottakkal Ayurveda College, he used to tell us about the same person which Murali Krishna sir has just now told, the moving Charaga, who taught Prakash sir, who is none other than Professor Chandranan Prabhushankar Shukla, CP Shukla sir in Jamnagar. One hand he will read Harrison, the other hand he will be reading Charaga, and he will be equalizing both. Not telling that Vadarakta is rheumatoid arthritis. No, he spoke about Sambrapti. He used the investigations to identify spectra of Sambrapti, and it has been told that usually spoke that if CP Shukla sir has written a diagnosis in the case sheet, and if that OP ticket has been presented to the nearby Jamnagar Medical College, nobody will refute it. So that I am telling. The so-called Tattvajna Vaidya should stand in the practice ground. They should face the realities which are being faced by the youngsters of the field. And then we have to discuss about the utility of using the technological investigation, because technology everywhere will ease the situation. It is a methodology to ease the situation. We are using this Zoom platform when there is COVID situation instead of writing letters. Why we are not writing letters instead of using Zoom? Because Zoom eases it. So likewise, if the availability of resources is there is no harm in using technological investigation to spice up our diagnostic, not to replace it. And many a time when we say we are using technological diagnosis to mimic allopathy doctors, we are regularly comparing ourselves with the system which has been practiced by Indian allopaths. I repeat, we have to model the practice which are being followed by the European medicine, how they are using these investigations to characterize the illness. So we need to characterize the illness. As a regular examiner, which I am going for the past 2 to 3 years, I stopped asking diagnosis to the students. Instead, I used to ask Sambrapti. Tell me the Sambrapti of this particular patient. Whether you have written Dridrasi or written anything else, that's not a thing. Instead, if you can tell Sambrapti and can justify why you have written an MRI scan, why you have written why can't you write CT scan? What was the purpose in Ayurveda? That will be the real question, I think. And technology. So 2 points I want to put in the forefront, that in the battleground, which a BMS graduate who is going to face outside in the clinical sector, technology may help him. So we should not dissuade the students from using technology. Second one, to use the technology, how you have to use the technology should be taught essentially in the college, and especially during the house residency period, what is the aim of writing each biochemical and imaging test. The third point is Ayurveda is very accommodating. It is very broad based. It can accommodate. It can accommodate all the new advances. Technology is not what is reserved for these allopath people. It can be used for ourselves also. And as years passes by, so that's why Prasad sir is telling
Rahul sir,
the
just continue,
understanding.
please.
No. That's why he is telling you can treat thalassemia with Ayurveda because sir is experienced. But what happens to a person who is just graduated out? That's my question. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rahul.